We're a nation prone to natural disasters, whether it's cyclones battering our northern coastlines, bushfires encroaching on our homes, or floods bursting our riverbanks. We've always managed to come out the other side as a united front. While much of it has to do with our fighting Aussie spirit, we couldn't survive without the volunteer support of community groups and charities such as the Red Cross. Its National Recovery Coordinator, Kate Brady, joins me now from Melbourne. And Kate, what are some of the more devastating disasters to have occurred in Australia over the last 100 years?
There have been literally hundreds of disasters over the last 100 years in Australia. Events such as Cyclone Tracy, Ash Wednesday, Black Saturday and Cyclone Yazi, I guess, really stand out in the Australian psyche and in our history, but there are hundreds of others. It's really important that we remember that even if a disaster doesn't make headlines, that the impacts of the people who are affected are real and they're long-lasting.
How exactly does a natural disaster impact a person's life?
Disasters impact people in far-reaching, complex ways, and they impact every facet of a person's life. Physically, we see lots of signs of stress in people who have been impacted by a disaster, and their brains are also impacted. So things like memory can be difficult for some people, concentration and sleep disruption. People's relationships can be impacted, and their livelihoods and finances are also impacted. We really encourage people who have been impacted by a disaster to take care of themselves. Recovery takes a really long time. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So make sure you're looking after yourself, your relationships and the people around you.
What roles do agencies such as the Red Cross fill in these instances?
Red Cross helps people prepare for disasters. We help when disasters need to be responded to, and we also support communities in the longer term. We think communities know best what they need, and so we work with them in the longer term to recover from the disaster and their impacts. In the shorter term after a disaster, we might be helping collect financial donations to make sure financial support is available to people, assisting in evacuation centres, providing psychological first aid, helping people reconnect with their loved ones. But the long-term impacts are real, and we know that, and so we support communities. We let them tell us what they need, and we help support them in the longer term.
What about everyday people? What can they do to assist those impacted by a natural disaster?
We know that some of the best things that people can do after a disaster is help with their friends and family. Ask people how they're going, check in to see how they're doing, and remember, if they've been impacted by a disaster, the effects are long-term and they're real. So if you can check in with people for a long time, it will really help, and will help people recover better. Other things that people can do: check out different websites that might be asking for volunteers in the longer term. We know that people often volunteer in the short term, but we need people to volunteer to support communities in the long term, or they might be able to provide financial assistance if an appeal's running.
Even if you don't live in areas prone to natural disaster, being prepared for such an event often means the difference between life and death. What should people do in order to be better prepared?
We would encourage everyone to be prepared for a disaster, because you never know when it's going to happen. Most people don't think disasters will happen to them, but we know that they're increasing in their frequency and in their severity. Some of the things that people can do is get informed about some of the hazards that might impact you in the areas that you live and work. Make a plan and practice that plan. Make sure you talk about it with your family and everyone knows what needs to happen. Get a kit together of the things that you think you might need in a disaster, and there are lots of agencies that can help with that. But also think about some of the things that are really important to you. Memorabilia, valuable items to you, things like photos that you're not going to be able to replace after a disaster. And get to know your neighbours. We know that people are generally assisted in the early stages of disaster by the people around them. Check in with your neighbours, see how you can help them and they can help you. The more support you can give to your friends and family preparing for and recovering from a disaster, the better people are going to recover.
Kate Brady, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.